Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson from Fluent 2016 in San Francisco. I'm here with Jono Bacon. Jono, how you doing?
Good, good.
You're with GitHub now.
I am indeed.
And what do you do at GitHub?
So my role is Director of Community, and what that basically maps down to is helping us as a organization to help our users be really effective in building strong communities. I mentally kind of subdivide it into a few different areas. One is helping GitHub users to be equipped with the knowledge and the tools they need to build great communities, because a lot of great community development is somewhat ad hoc these days. But then the other thing is bringing GitHub users together as a wider community as well, so they can help support each other and help them each other to be successful.
Can we pick apart community for a second?
Absolutely.
I'm kind of interested here. What's the difference between a community and a group of developers?
It's a great question. My personal viewpoint is that it subdivides into this collaboration, this culture, and then there's kind of ethos. So I think you can get a group of people hanging out with each other. But what's interesting about communities is that they are invariably connected by a common purpose. So if you have a typical open source community, they have a goal and a focus, and then from that the culture will develop. And when I think you can grow the culture and optimize that group to be successful in that focus, that's when we make human beings more effective, we make them more capable. So I think what you see in many communities today is it's very ad hoc. People just kind of get together because they want to build something that's interesting and cool. But it's not particularly organized in many cases. And I think when we help those people to have the knowledge and the skills they need to do great stuff, then we make inclusive, fun, and productive communities that can be successful.
And so what kind of people are good at making a community work? I mean, because,
Right.
I'm very curious, like there are people out there that are in college now, and how do they know if they're right to be a community leader or get into a community? I mean,
Yeah.
What's the right kind of person?
It's tough because I think that people who build good communities have an understanding of like that connective tissue that's between technology and people. And all too often in the world, we forget that we're human beings, and we forget that there's a common set of kind of biases and desires and goals and uncertainties that human beings tend to have. So I think people who are good at building communities, they understand the human condition, but they can also map that human condition into a set of reproducible things that people can work on. The classic example is Linux. When Linux formed years ago, Linus Torvalds never set out to be a community manager. He'd not really done that before, but he has a sense of how people operate, and he's been able to build a strong community around that. Now, there are, of course, many viewpoints about whether that approach is the right approach or not the right approach. But the reason why that was successful in the first place, I think, was because he could identify what's the best way in which people can work together around that common goal.
And so the best communities are ones that do what different than ones that are not as successful? Because when I think about communities, there are some that are, I almost want to say hostile to new people coming in. Like they want a kind of a closed community.
Yeah.
So how do you get a community that is working together and working well? What does it take to make that happen?
I personally think a lot of it, and this is where the Linus and the Linux example is contentious, is I personally believe that it's about setting a good example. Great leaders will instill that culture in the people who form in that community. If you accept a hostile environment, if you lead with a hostile environment, you will get hostile people. It's difficult though because you want to welcome directness and you want to welcome honesty, but you also want the environment to be safe and effective and fun and engaging. And I think everyone draws those lines in slightly different ways. So my viewpoint is set the expectations up front with the community that you expect this to be a tolerant, a collaborative environment. But, and a lot of people do that through things like codes of conduct and, various community guidelines and things like that. But you've got to, I think, live those principles in your leadership for it to really stick.
Lead by example.
Yeah, really lead by example, not just in terms of not tolerating bad stuff from happening, but also encouraging people to think bigger and to be ambitious and all the good things that we see in people. Like, I think anyone who's watching this will have worked with somebody or will know somebody who's inspiring to them. And the more we bring that into the leadership of communities, the better results we get.
So if we look back at communities in the last few years, the last 10, 15 years,
right,
there's been a lot that have come and gone.
Yeah.
And if you look forward, I think GitHub sits in a really unique position to help build communities. So what are you going to be doing at GitHub to help that go forward?
The thing that I would like to accomplish at GitHub is to help equip the average GitHub user with the very best skills and knowledge that and tools that they can use to build great communities themselves. I think the typical GitHub user will create a project, they'll create a repo, they'll blog about it, they'll tweet about it, and what they want is that social code, and they want that collaborative environment. They want people to be passionate what they're doing. I think part of the reason why open source has been so successful and has been so fun for people is because you get to solve really interesting technical problems with people who are also kind of passionate and forward-looking. And I think that there's a lot that we can do in helping to bring the very best from successful open source projects into that. So as an example, just release management. There's so many successful approaches to release management, such as 6-monthly releases or rolling releases. And I think we can guide a lot of our users around that. So that's one piece. But then the other thing is I think helping to look at like the behavioral patterns that we see in communities and bring them into the tool. Like there are just, the behavioral economics is dealt with this quite significantly. There's just ways in which we're predictably irrational. And I think we can learn that skeleton of how people operate and build that into what GitHub is doing as well.
And are you doing the community leadership at OSCON again this year?
Yeah.
And when is that?
It's the weekend before OSCON, which I think is the 14th and 15th of May. I can't remember offhand.
In where?
In Austin.
Texas.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So.
Yeah. So what would you like to see happen in the next, let's say, 3 years with community development at GitHub and more about GitHub going further around the globe? I mean, Is that part of building communities is basically a global thing? Absolutely.
I mean, I guess you could say the bold philosophy that I've got is that I've been talking about in the last couple of years is I think that we as human beings aren't operating at maximum efficiency in how we collaborate with each other, because most projects don't necessarily have those people who can help put together a great community experience, because it's kind of a rare set of skills. So my dream about what we accomplish in the next 3 years is that is when the average GitHub user joins GitHub and they want to create a community, that they have a set of tools and resources and knowledge where they can build it themselves, where they don't have to necessarily know a good community manager, a good community leader, or somebody who's done it before, where we can, in my mind, it's not necessarily about having all the answers, it's about packaging up the right answers. But also identifying the fact that communities are very diverse in lots of different ways. They're all different, they operate in different ways, so not forcing people into a box as well.
Natural synergy.
Yeah, and I think the impact that can have, particularly in developing nations, will be huge, because we're seeing hundreds of millions of new minds getting online with cell phones and getting connected to the internet for the first time. And if we can get them connected into that experience, then it makes their lives better as well.
Excellent. Jono, we look forward to that journey in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.